Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, boys and girls. It's time for another lesson. Let's go over the topics that we're going to cover today. Pica un poco la nariz. Okay, so first of all, we're going to work a practical lab, a Cisco Packet Tracer lab, and this is that topology that we will be working on. It's basically composed with 3 routers and 2 LANs, local area networks. Okay, what are some of the topics that we will be covering today? AAA authentication, AAA authorization, mainly, TACACS, and radius. What I'm saying right now is authentication only, authentication. So probably we will be focusing on that, AAA authentication. We will be working on using TACACS on router 2 and radius on router 3 and the different methodologies and methods related to AAA authentication. So let's go, let's go. First, what are we going to do? And let me just share the topology so you can have a better understanding of this. This is what we have: a server, a PC, and router 3, router 2, and router 1. This is another server and a PC, and finally PCA. Okay, how is the network scheme for this correctly set up per se? Okay, give me just a moment. We will see it in a brief second. There you go. Okay, so we have 192 and 168.1.1, 4 gigabit 01 on router 1, 192 and 168.2.1, gigabit 00 on router 2, 192 and 168.1.3.21, that is router 3, and so on. The different IP addresses for each of each of those devices. Okay, let's start with the first part of this scenario. What are we going to do? Some of the objectives. Configure a local user account on router 2 and configure authenticate all the console and BTY lines using local AAA. What else? What else? Verify local AAA authentication from router 1 console 2 and PCA client. Configure server-based AAA authentication using TACACS. Verify server-based AAA authentication from PCB client. Configure server-based AAA authentication using radius and verify server-based AAA authentication from the PC client. So let's go with the lab. First, we need to configure this information for the local account on router 1, a username and a password. Then we have to go with TACACS, integrating the TACACS protocol on router 2. Then radius protocol, we will be integrating that into router 3. And the router has also a pre-configured the following: enable secret password Cisco MPass55, and the OSPF protocol with MD5 authentication using the password AMD5 PA55. All right, let's go one step at a time. First, we have to do some connectivity tests. So let me see if I can work on that right now. And it shouldn't be that difficult. Let's see if we have the option to do it with the packages. From PCA to B, PCA to C, and PCB to C, PCC. Okay, PCA to PCB. Let's go, let's go. Let's use the packages for now. Okay, it is successful. That is the first one. What is the other one? We have the first one. Let's go with the instructions there. Let me minimize the screen for a moment. Okay, PCA to PCC. Okay, let's do it the old-fashioned way, the correct way that we're supposed to do it. So PCA to what was the first one? to PCB. So we need the IP address for PCB. Let me just copy this IP address. Let's go to PCA and let's do the connectivity test manually, the correct way. Let's go to PCA. Let's go to the CMD, to the command line. Let's do a ping test here. Perfect. Amazing. Now, let's do the other one. Let me minimize this and let's go with the other one. Now, we have to do a connectivity test for PCC. So let's go with PCC. This is the IP address. Let me return to the CMD. Hopefully, one day I will be able to do so. And let's do a ping test. Be careful, guys. I forgot to add the ping command there. It is essential and important to do so. So usually the first one times out and the other one works correctly. If we do it again, everything works perfectly. What else are we missing here? Let me see. We have to do a ping test for PCB to PCC. Okay, same IP address. Let's just move to PCB. Let me close this for a moment. And let's go to PCB. It's over here. Let's see. Remember, ping is the way that we do the connectivity test. And then you see the ICMP package is successful. Amazing. Congratulations. Great job. Okay, what else are we missing? What else? What else, guys? Boys and girls? What else? Let's go to the instructions. If I'm not mistaken, we have to configure this in router 1. So let's do it. Let's go to router 1 and let's configure this information. Let me close the screen for a moment. Let me visit this topology. And this is actually router 1. There is a password, guys. Remember there was a password? And I have to find it. It's actually, it should be there. It should be there in the instructions. Let's take a look at the instructions to see if we can see what is the password for router 1. Oh, yeah, I remember the pre-configured password. So just go to the instructions and look for the pre-configured password for router 1. There you go. It is in the first part of the instructions where it says background scenario. If you go to the instructions here, and you can see there is the password that we just completed. We added this information and now we have to move forward. Okay, so the first command we do. Let me minimize this for a moment and let's go here with the following. We have to do username, then admin1, secret, and then admin1 pass. Great job. Good. Now we have to configure the local authentication for the console access on router 1. And the way we do it is with the AAA and then new dash model command. So let's go. AAA, new dash model, and then enter. Next, AAA out, and we can complete with the tab after out. It doesn't work like Linux, so we have to write the full command. It will be authentication. Now it works. Authentication. We use the tab to complete some of these commands, and it's easier to work this way. The complete command will be AAA authentication login default lockout. That is the command that we need at this specific moment. Step 1 was the pin connectivity test. We completed those. Step 2 was the username. We completed this one over there. Step 3 was the AAA new model and the authentication login default local. Now, we have to configure the console, the line console, to use a defined AAA authentication. How do we do it? That's a big mystery. So let's go and type the following: line con 0, login, authentication with tab, you can complete the command, and then default. Perfect. Let's do an end. Let's do a WR to save the configuration just to cover our back. Are we able to do a test here? Okay, let me see if I can validate the access. Let me see if I can validate the access here. Let's go ahead and do the following. Let's do the following. We just configure router 1. So let's connect a cable, a console cable, and let's try to log in into the router. We go to the terminal, we click in OK. I'm just going to stop sharing the video for a moment. And I was automatically logged in, but let's see if I exit, if I'm able to use the username. In this case, it will be admin1. Do you guys remember the password? Do you guys remember it? I am doing something wrong. Let's see. Admin1 is the user, right? Then we have the password, which in this case is admin1 PA55. There is something wrong. There is something wrong with the password. We just configured it. I remember we just configured it in the router, but we did something wrong with the password. It was admin1 pass. Okay. So that's what happened. I think I might have configured the wrong password. This is actually, we need to access the device. Let me see. Let me see if I'm able to do it. Admin1. Let me just paste it there. Let's do an enable. Let's go ahead and do the um, admin1 pass 55 here. Let's do it. Admin1 PA55. Am I doing something wrong? I think I just configured it incorrectly. So let me just paste the one that I have there. Let me just paste this one because I think I configured it incorrectly. Let me go there one more time. Enable. Let me just paste it there. There is something wrong. Maybe I didn't configure it correctly or something is incorrect here. Because I remember this is the correct one I had over there. Yes, it was admin one pass. This is supposed to be working. I'm going to use another one. Maybe that is in instructions. No, I might have to reset the lab because I don't know what is going on. I just lock myself out of the device for some reason. This is so strange. Let me see if I can reset the lab or something because I don't get it. I was supposed to access it, but when I configure it, I don't remember to configure anything different. Admin1 and then pass. Hmm. Oh, it was Cisco MPA PA55. Enable Cisco ENPA55. There you go. Config T. I was adding the incorrect password. Now, let's go back to this configuration that I added there. Let me just copy these and paste it there. And let's do an O to negate this command. Now, same command, but in this case, I have to change something. The correct command, it is the following. Let me just copy and paste it there. Let me just paste it there. I'll do a no just to negate the command again, and I'm just going to paste it there. There you go. It is admin1PA55. Now, let me go ahead and do the test again from the PC. Let's do an exit, exit. Let's do an admin1. And then let me paste that command, that specific command, admin1PA55. Let me just paste it there. There you go. Now for the enable, it's very important. It is the same command. I'm just going to copy and paste it there. Let me see. It is actually Cisco N. It's a different one. Cisco EN 55. PA 55. So remember to type it slowly. Cisco EN PA 55. And there you go. Config T and you have it. Okay, so we ran into some trouble. And the problem, one of the main issues is that I configured incorrectly when I was adding the configuration the secret password. Then also it's important to remember there is a specific password for MD5 authentication for OSPF and one for enable secret. There is an enable secret password, which is the Cisco ENPF55. So we have to be careful with the passwords. But it's just a lesson for life. Everybody makes mistakes, but we have to learn from them. Whenever you run into a problem in a pre-production environment or in a production environment, something that I recommend is to always add notes. Add notes to the tickets, to the different service requests, or to the events. Give me just a moment, please. I need to drink some water. So that is my recommendation. Add notes to the service requests, to the intakes events, to the incidents, and so on. So you have that information correct and you don't run into any trouble with your boss or your coworkers. If something happened, like we just experienced right now, and you are able to resolve the issue, type notes. I was typing the incorrect password, then I was able to fix it, and then everything is working correctly and efficient as possible. So just as an example of some mistakes that could happen in real life world scenarios, but you have to overcome those. Let's continue with the lab. That is an important lesson for life that we just learned right now. Okay, so we just configured the local authentication. Let's see if there is something else we need to do. Part 2, local authentication VTY lines. Okay, we still have to do some work here. So let me stop sharing the camera and let's focus in the lab. We are in router 1. What do we need to do here? The next command is to configure the domain. IP domain dash name and then ccnasecurity.com. Let's validate that in the instructions for a moment. Let's go to the instructions and validate that. This is the CCNA security. Let's go to part 2. ccnasecurity.com. Yes, perfect. So we're good with that one. The next is crypto key generate RSA 1024, 1024. Enter. There you go. Now, let's do a AAA authentication. Remember, with that, you can actually configure this. And what else? What else? What else? AAA authentication login. Login SSH dash local. Then local there. Then let's do the following. Let's change the version. It's important to change the version of the SSH. So, how do we do it is the big question. SSH, it says that SSH version 2. SSH version. Let me see if that was the correct way. Let me just do some research because it is actually a different command. I might be typing the incorrect information. How to add the SSH version in a Cisco router. Maybe I'm typing something wrong. I want to figure it out. After the domain name, the crypto key is IP. Is IP. So the command is IPSSH version 2. That's what we need to configure. And I forgot at that specific moment, but we got it. We got it. Let's continue with the lab. Let's continue with the lab. And what we're going to do right now is configure the BTY line. So let's do the following. Okay, the next command that we're going to execute is line BTY 04. Then login authentication. SSH-login. Enter. Okay, we're getting an error message. It says, warning, authentication list login is not defined for login. Don't worry, we will take care of that in a moment. Let's do the transport in lowercase, transport input SSH, enter, and end. Okay, let's do WR. It's actually just a WR. This command, WR, is the same as applying a copy running config, a startup config. Now I'm going to go to PC1 to do a test. Let me exit here. And we're going to test the connectivity here. Let me see. Let me just close this for a moment. Let's go to the terminal. To the command line. Let's go to the command line and let's type the following. Let's type SSH-L admin1 space admin1 then space 192 and 168.1.1. Enter. Now the password is admin1 pass, all in lowercase. Am I doing something wrong? Maybe I am. Let's see. Admin1 PA55 is admin1 PA55. Then the enable, do you guys remember the enable password? If not, you can just go to the instructions and look it up. It was Cisco EN55, Cisco ENPA55. If I'm not mistaken, let's do a config T. Let's do a show IP interface brief. Do show IP interface brief. You can see the different interfaces configuring the router device. Okay, Let's move forward. Let's continue moving forward. What else are we missing from this lab? We configured the AAA SSH domain, the BTY lines, the local authentication. We need to move to router 2. Now we need to move to router 2. So let's close the screen so we don't get confused or anything like that. And let's move to router 2. Enable. Remember the password that we have for the devices? Do you memorize it? Okay, it is Cisco ENPA55. There you go, Conf-T. And let's continue moving on. Now, what we need to do is configure the server-based AAA authentication using TACACS in this case. And the first command that we're going to use is a local username for router 2 and a password. Username, admin2. Then we have secret. Then we have admin2, PA55. What else? Let me just activate the camera for a moment so you can see that I'm just trying to figure out the puzzle and solve it. So we configure the local user and the secret password. Next, we have to configure the TACACS server. So still here, we do it the following way. TACACS, it is TACACS -server host and 192 and 168, that to the 2, that is the server where we need to configure the TACACS information. Then TACACS again, -server, and then we have the key, and then TACACS PA55. Okay, perfect. What else are we missing? Configure AAA local authentication console access on router 2. So let's do it. AAA new dash model. Remember this command? We used it before. AAA authentication login default group TACACS plus and then local. That's all we need to configure for now. Maybe in real life we might need more commands, but for this Cisco packet tracer and simulation, we are good at this moment so far. Next, configure the console, the line console, to use the defined AAA authentication method. Line con 0. Login. Authentication. Default. How do you do if you have to do it in real life? You just go to Google and type how to configure AAA on a Cisco Live router. And you will get the information pretty much from the Cisco official website 99% of the time. And we will move forward from that point. So just to give you the heads up and a real world scenario example of how to do this in a real life equipment in production. Also, it's important to do it with maintenance windows. You have to do it outside business hours in order to avoid any chaos in your production networks. End is the next command that we're going to type here. What else? Okay, now we have to do the test. So let's go ahead and do a WR, just a WR, and let's do the following. Let me go ahead and connect another console cable here. And let's test this. Terminal. Enter. Let's do an exit. And it will be admin2. Then we have admin 2, PA55. Then enable, remember, the enable I always keep forgetting. It is something related with Cisco. It's actually Cisco and PA55. Cisco EN, PA55. Maybe I'm typing it wrong. It was supposed to be Cisco ENPA55. Yeah, there you go, finally. Remember to type it slowly. It is important. So you don't have any mistyping errors when typing this information and accessing the network devices. Okay, let's continue moving on with the lab. Next step in our journey is part 4. Configure the radius authentication, AAA authentication using radius on router 3. So let's close this. Let me go ahead and close everything for now. Let's move to router 3. Let's do the enable. And then remember, guys, do you memorize it? I never learned that password. Okay, it was a Cisco EN PA55. There you go. Config T. There you go. Amazing. Congratulations. Good job. Okay, next thing we do is, and this is actually step 4. Configure the user, the local database entry for the admin. Username. Username admin3. Then we have the secret, admin3, PA55. Okay, what else? What else? Radius. Server, host, 192, that 168, that 3.2. Radius, dash server, and we have the key, and then radius PA55. AAA, new Dutch model, enter. AAA, authentication login, default, group, radius, local. There you go. Now, remember you can do a do WR to save the configuration we just completed. It's time for testing. Let's go ahead and do the test, the final test. We're going to configure a console cable here to access the router 3. How do we do it is the big mystery. Okay, it's not really a mystery. Let's go with the terminal. And you're already there. Let's do an exit. Let me move this a little bit. Let's do an exit again. And for some reason, there is something strange with the screen. I cannot see it. Okay, now I see it. Now, admin 3. Then it was admin 3, PA55. I might have typed it too fast this time. So let me do it one more time. It's just kind of stuck there. Okay, let me just go over it one more time. So admin 3. The first one is is actually capital letter. And then it was lowercase admin 3 PA55. There you go. Okay, it was con en and then something about PA55. I don't remember it. I'm going to just look it up there. It should be in the instructions at the first part of the lab. It was with Cisco actually, so it was Cisco EN and then was PA55. Show IP interface brief. Show interface should be route. We're just doing some connectivity troubleshooting commands in a router to detect some information related to routing, some IP addresses, some static routes, some OSPF learn routes. Mainly connected routes and OSPF learn routes is what we have here. Okay, so I hope that you have enjoyed this lab, learned something from it, and remember, practice makes perfect. So keep practicing so you become an expert in configuring your networking device. Until next time, I will see you at the top of success. Take care, boys and girls. It's been a pleasure to work with you along today and configure this lab.